Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Gallowgateshots podcast on our very own Gallowgateshots YouTube channel. It is our second match reaction in as many days, Scott. This time, we're joined by Ian as well before we move on. So, boys, just like the last one, we're going to keep this one pretty quick, pretty simple, just like us lot as well. Scott, like I mentioned, it's almost back-to-back games. And Newcastle play
Yeah.
on Saturday. Then a couple of days later, we have a trip to Scotland to face Glasgow Rangers. And we mentioned this on the run-up to the game that it's going to be a bit more of a competitive game against
Yeah,
Rangers, and we saw that tonight.
we did. I mean, starting lineup was pretty much full strength to a degree. Obviously, we were missing a few key players, but you wouldn't sniff at that starting 11 in a Premier League game. Certainly not. Maybe it's Jamal Lewis playing as the only kind of, I don't want to say weak point, but he was the lesser of the players on there who you would expect to start. An actual formation could be picked from the starting 11 this time, which was nice, unlike the Gateshead game. And started really well. Really, really good first half of football.
So it was good to see, like I said, a lot of the most senior players coming into that starting 11, and we had a rough idea that the positions they would be playing, unlike the Gateshead game where it was basically lads pick wherever you want to play and you can play there. Tonight, obviously, we saw the likes of Wilson coming back into the team, Botman, Fabian Shaw, a couple of them in there, and Tonali gets his debut as well. So I just want to dive straight in there because I think he is going to be quite a major topic and talking point in this recording. He's a decent player from what we saw in those 45 minutes.
Absolutely. Obviously, it's 45 minutes, so it's not obviously the be all and end all if he had a bad game, but he looked lively, looked like he wanted to be on the ball. He was always showing and making himself an option. And what I liked about him as well, he didn't hold on for too long. It was maximum 2-3 touches, and then it was a pass. But he looks a quality player, and it'll be interesting to see sort of when everyone's up to speed and everyone's fit, where he would fit in. But I was very impressed with Tonali.
Yeah, we've had a comment straight away there, Scott, by Glenn1892 that says, looking forward to seeing Bruno, Big Joe, and Tonali together. I think everybody is. As soon as, like Ian said, as soon as the lads are back up to fully fitness and match ready, we could have a very, very good midfield trio on our hands.
Yep, and you've also got to include Little Joe as well and Joe Willock, because I think we might see him more in the middle than actual Joe Linton this season. I think Joe Linton might be more used on the left. I think we talked about this uncanny chatter this week, but yeah, I just think you just see him when he's playing. He's scanning of the pitch. He's almost thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead, and he's tending to get it right. He seems like, it's really weird. He doesn't look like he's fast, but then you blink your eyes and he's like 3-4 yards up the field from where he was. He's got a bit of acceleration on him and quite a lot of running power. I hate to say it because he did so well last season, but he's levels ahead of Sean Longstaff in that position. Whether we get the same work rate, whether we get the same kind of, everywhere on the pitch, is yet to be seen. We've only seen 45 minutes. Let's not get too carried away, but
I'm getting carried away.
He does look like some player. Like, he does look like he looks like that level up that we've needed in terms of that position. Just if you think of him as a replacement for John Joe
all the time, it's that upgrade where yes, we all love Sean Longstaff would do, and we appreciate all the work that he did last season in regards to the dirty work and covering every blade of grass on the pitch for St. James's. But I think what I like from Tonali tonight is how well he protects that ball. He will just literally put his body in front of the opposition in the ball, and like you said, Scott, he was away straight away. He's always thinking that next step, like you mentioned. And do you know what it is? And I'm going to repeat myself here, Ian. I think that midfield trio could be up there with the best in the Premier League this season.
100%. I think if you looked at it just based on names alone, you haven't got sort of that household name. But given that we watch them every week, we know what Joe Linton brings, we know what Bruno brings, and we can, or based on the 45 minutes, obviously, we've seen what Tonali has to offer. It's it's a very, very good midfield. Similar point to what you were making, it looks like he's sort of 5 yards ahead of play in his head before he gets the ball, whereas one of the criticisms about Longstaff is he has to take a touch, then he'll think about what he's doing, and then sometimes he'll get caught, or sometimes the option's off, whereas as Tonali looks like he's ahead of play already, which can only be a positive.
Yeah, he seems switched on. Scott, you're getting a lot of love for your T-shirt. Those that are listening to the audio, Scott is repping a design which you created, Scott, which is basically, it says Tonali, and obviously it's in the Italian colours. Is it the
It's a Ferrari.
It's a Ferrari font.
Yeah.
So it's a Ferrari font, which is used as well, and it's perfect. Scott, where can people get that from?
You can get that from jodiesclothing.com. They're available now.
There you go. Doesn't even pay a sponsorship. Doesn't even pay a sponsorship for this. But let's look at the goal first of all, boys. And it's very well worked. Almiron doing what Almiron does in preseason and getting on that score sheet, Scott.
Yeah. I mean, we've just been talking about him, but it starts with Tonali picking the ball up the middle of the field. He plays a ball to Elliot Anderson through, I think, 2 or 3 Rangers players. And then Anderson's got the space to turn, finds Miggy on the right-hand side, and Miggy cuts in, as Miggy's been doing quite a lot. And he starts his preseason goal bonanza that he did last season as well. I think we might see 7 or 8 again this preseason, but, his finish was really nice. Slots it past the keeper. Yes, okay, it was, the 41-year-old who, it was his testimonial. Maybe he's not as sharp as most goalkeepers will be, but take nothing away from Miggy. It was a nice finish. It was a good composed finish. And you could just see, not just with Miggy, but throughout the entire squad in that first half, the confidence is just oozing out of every single player. And it was, I had to kind of just double check that I was watching Newcastle, because it was nice to see just we're playing a team like Rangers who, no slouches. They're a decent team. They're in the Champions League themselves. And we kind of made them look bang average in that first half. They didn't seem to get a look in at all. But yeah, going back to the goal, I think we're going to see a lot of that from Elliot Anderson, maybe, drifting into that middle, picking that ball up and getting a few assists to his name, because that's his second as well now in pre-season, because he set up Maxi last week on Sunday. So yeah, all good.
Yeah, it's great. That was going to be the next talking point, which we went on to, and I'll come straight to you, Ian, is that Anderson's done well in the last 2 games, like Scott mentioned, against Gateshead and now against Rangers. Do you think we'll see more of Anderson this season? Because obviously now we've got European football, you've got both your cup competitions. That squad's going to be getting used, and is Anderson going to be a key figure in that?
You would like to think so. I think we sat sort of around about this time last season and done the keep, loan, sell, and I think a lot of us were in favour from going out maybe to a championship club. Yeah. Seeing his couple of cameos at the start of the season, and he did well in them. But again, today I thought he looked so sharp. He looked like he was trying to get on the ball and drive at the defence. Some of his link-up play at the start of the second half as well, I think, with Gordon was very, very clever. And like you say, he's got an assist. So I think more game time is only going to be a benefit to him. And if we're going to continue with the 3 in midfield, given the amount of competition that we're in, we've got, I think, arguably five centre mids that can play across that 3. I think Elliot Anderson would be one of the ones that could fill in, sort of similar to what Joe Willock and Joe Linton do in that position. Minded. Yeah, but more. So I would like to see him, because, like I say, from what I've seen of him, he does look like quite a confident player for his age as well. And like Scott was saying, it's granted it was Gateshead at the weekend, but Rangers, like you say, a well-established European club. I think even their starting lineup, I think, was pretty much the team that were playing in the Premier League last season, with a couple of the new signings. So it wasn't like just a makeshift squad. It was a fairly decent 11 that they put out in the first half, and he coped very, very well with that.
Yeah, so Scott goes in at half-time 1-0, Newcastle 1-0 up. And like you said, we dominated that game most of the 90 minutes, I would say. We'll go on to the last 20 minutes soon. But a lot of changes at half time. Do you have the list of changes? Because I am not going to lie. At one point, I did not have a clue where anybody was playing, especially in defence.
Well, neither did the commentators, to be fair. It took them 10, 15 minutes to realise that Caldolo...
Well, the commentator's mind was blown that the fact that we played a high press and put players on the edge of the box. They just couldn't figure that out. What's this?
It was strange.
What they're doing?
That's genuinely what their reaction was as well.
It was, yeah. So half-time, it was Gordon, Isak, Bruno, Lewis Miley, Dan Burn, Manquillo, and Caldolo who came on. So you got 7, I think that is.
We'll start with the last player who you mentioned there, and it's Caldolo. Caldolo done himself quite a few favours against Gateshead. I thought he had a half-decent game against Gateshead. He came crashing back down to earth this evening.
Yeah,
was poor.
Rangers equaliser. You just don't pass the ball to even a player like Bruno, who he passed to with his back to the attacking team when there's a press on, and Rangers, to give them credit, in that second half they did come back in the game. They started pressing us a bit more. I think that's got a lot to do with the changes, because there were more changes after that as well.
Formation just went out the window.
We had 11 changes in that entire game, so it's entire different lineup by the end of it. But he passes the ball. Bruno's caught, with his back to the attacker. Didn't know.
He's flat-footed, Scott. That's the best way to describe it. He's flat-footed. He's in a standing position. If there's an opposition player coming up to ready to nick that ball off you, they're going to win that 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hence why Dolo shouldn't be putting him in that position.
There wasn't a lot of pace on the ball either. Like it was so under hit, which obviously didn't help the case at all.
I think there was still quite a lot to do from the attacker's perspective to put it past Dolo, but he was out of his box. He was, outside the 6-yard box in no man's land, really, and slots home. He did, though, to give Dolo a bit of credit towards the end. He did redeem himself with a really nice save.
Towards the end,
which is what Dolo's always been good at, to be fair. He's always been a good shot stopper. It's always been his distribution that's been the question mark, and I think that question mark got even bigger this evening with that second goal. With the first goal that they got.
One of the changes which I want to discuss in a little bit of detail as well, Ian, is Anthony Gordon. It's his first appearance since returning from the Euro Championships, and he looked lively when he came on. Looked like he had a point to prove.
Yeah, the first, I said it in the group chat, the first sort of 10, 15 minutes before the remainder of those changes come on, I thought he did look very sharp, particularly him and Anderson linked up well. He was trying to get, I think at the time it was Jamal Lewis who went to left back. He was trying to get him involved on the overlap. He was cutting inside. I think there was one, he did maybe a step over, put it through the kid's leg and put the ball across the box as well. So he does look lively. I think it will be a huge season for him. I think given that he's come off the back of a European competition where England have won a trophy, he's been voted the player of the tournament. I think that's going to do massive for his confidence, because I think a lot of us thought, well, we've spent, 45 million on him. Didn't have a great deal to show, but it was still early days. He was coming from a side that were low on confidence, probably very, very low in fitness levels compared to what Eddie Howe is. So I think with him having that tournament experience, yes, he hasn't got a rest, but he's probably got himself up to speed a little bit more. But yeah, I thought he'd definitely look lively, and especially sort of the first 15 minutes of the second half.
You mentioned there that he was very open in his interviews towards the end of the season when he was explaining that when he came to Newcastle, he was miles behind the rest of the lads in regards to fitness. And he did obviously highlight that. And Scott, we've spoke a lot of time about how big of a season Gordon's got coming up, and obviously the benefit that we've got a European competition ourselves to be a part of. No matter what, Gordon's going to get some game time, a lot more game time than what he was getting last season. Obviously, we've got to remember he was cup tied, so he couldn't face Man United in the cup final. Then, obviously, there's no further cup competition, so it was only Premier League games he was getting his chances in. And there's a couple of appearances here and there, but he never really cemented a spot in that team. Like we saw in the summer then, how well he done, like Ian said, getting the player of the tournament in that competition. That competition, it's not a bad competition. The standard in there, you young European lads, is very high. And for him to get player of the tournament is an achievement in itself. And I just think now, with the mindset that he's probably got arriving on Tyneside and thinking, I've got to work a hell of a lot harder than what I was previously, that's only going to benefit both him and our squad.
100%. I mean, I think he's openly also said that, he wasn't fit playing under Frank Lampard when he was at Everton. I don't think any of the players were. I think it was a very similar scenario to what we had with Steve Bruce with the training set up where, the players weren't maybe in every day or they weren't in as much as they thought they would be. He came to Newcastle, got a bit of a shell shock. He also had a little bit of an injury. Got to remember that as well. So he was sidelined with an injury. So that's probably set him back a bit. But he's kind of, I'd probably say the last couple of games of the season and then going into the Euros and then now, he seems to be back to the player that we thought we'd signed when we first got him. Maybe he's even a little bit better. It's hard to tell. It's only been a couple of games again. But obviously that tournament full of world-class players already. I mean, Tonali was in that tournament. It's not just, the youngsters. They play a few who were over the under 21 ages or under 23 age. They play a couple of players,
isn't it?
That get through. I think with Gordon, pre-season's going to be massive for him. I think he's going to get up to what we call Eddie Howe standard of fitness because there's being fit and there's Eddie Howe fit. I think Isak was the first to say that. Once we get him up to that standard, then he starts singing to the same hymn sheet as what Eddie Howe wants him to be doing. I think the sky's the limit for Anthony Gordon in a Newcastle jersey. I think he's going to be a very big player. And again, we're not touching it too much tonight, but if the rumours and the breaking news before the game is true about Maxi, he's got more of an opportunity than ever to get into the squad because there's going to be a gaping hole there.
Well, it all depends, though, Scott, doesn't it? It depends on what happens with the departure of Maxi. And like you said, we're not going to focus too much because it looks like it is happening and Maxi is out the door. I think the price, which is being mentioned, needs to be a hell of a lot higher. But Maxi coming out, I think Maxi's the fee which we're going to be bringing in is going to go towards Barnes by the sounds of it, which obviously fills that left-hand side. I think with Gordon, though, Ian, is that he's got the versatility there to play anywhere across that front three, which was so, once again, in the Euros there. He's played up top a lot of that. But I think he works very good as, like we mentioned last game, Scott, like as a false nine, technically, really, where he can just float anywhere across that front three.
Yeah, and like you say, we're seeing that because I didn't catch all the under 21s, 23s tournament, but the games I did see, it looked like he was floating between sort of, like you say, that false nine, almost like what Bobby Firmino did for Liverpool, and then floating to the left. I think there was him and maybe I think it was Emile Smith-Rowe from Arsenal were sort of changing. And if one thing we do know is Eddie Howe likes a versatile player. So for him to be able to play possibly even across on the right as well, again, just gives so many more options in terms of personnel who we could play where. And like you say, I think it's only going to be a good thing for the squad that we've got a player that can potentially fill all three of those front three roles.
Yeah, so just jumping back into the game itself, Scott, there's a couple more changes made around about the 60th minute, and that's when everything started dropping quite a bit, and it looked like Rangers, it was their game to win, and obviously with it being a testimonial, we are all in the impression thinking it's going to be similar to Shearer's, where they'll get a penalty in the last minute, and I think Shearer had been subbed off, and got subbed back on, didn't he, to take that penalty. We thought it was going to happen again, didn't we? But it didn't. Somehow, Newcastle managed to get the breakthrough and score the second and final goal of the game. I am not going to lie, people that are listening or watching this one, I completely missed this goal because I was setting this up. So I thought, I'll nip away for 5 minutes. Nothing's happening. I'll set this up and get ready to go live. Scott, talk me through the goal.
Yeah, well, luckily, I've seen it about 50 times. We've got Twitter open beside this window, and the video of the goal is on loop to whoever I'm watching. So, Isak kind of picks up a loose ball on the left-hand side, and he drives at the defender. The defender's 6s and 7s, doesn't know what to do. Very similar to the Everton one, but obviously not as high level as that Everton assist. But he gets to the byline. He's got two players by him, and he just dinks a cross in. And of all players, Harrison Ashby stood in the 6-yard box in and he has a lot to do still because it's quite high cross, but he manages to get his head in it and it just loops over the keeper. It's a very good header. Keeper's got no chance of saving that. And yeah, it makes it 2-1 in around 87 minutes. So you kind of think then, yeah, that's the winner. But like we've said, it was a testimonial. We were expecting maybe I don't want to say a scripted ending, but something
sort of thing.
Yeah, maybe it's a pantomime ending, but it seems like we were the bad guys, and we were the ones to take the spoils tonight. But yeah, going back to the goal again, brilliant run by Isak, lovely little dink cross, and haven't seen much of Ashby. I think we've only really seen him last week against Gateshead, and then tonight. And if I'm going to be honest, I didn't even know he was on the pitch tonight until he scored because Manquillo was on the left. I don't know where Ashby was supposed to be playing or where he was on the field because he didn't really have much to do for the game, but he popped up at the right place at the right time, sticks his head on the ball, and yeah, he gets his first goal for Newcastle, which is nice.
So, Ian, just sticking with Ashby, a lot of injury concerns when we bought him from West Ham. Obviously, still a young lad. Do you think that because we're quite flattered when it comes to right backs at the minute, and if you look at obviously Trippier is going to be your starting right back, you've got Millcraft who was doing well until he picked up that injury when Eddie Howe first came in, and you've also got Manquillo. You would think Manquillo will probably get told that you can't leave him, and that'll be very, very cheap that he'll go for. Do you think Ashby will stick around, or do you think we'll possibly look at sending him out on loan?
If Kraft hadn't been injured, I would have said that he would have went out on loan. But to be honest, Kraft got the Eddie Howe treatment and he turned his game around massively. And it was really unfortunate that he did pick up that injury at the start of last season. So you don't know what player you're going to get with Kraft. Obviously, he's been out, it's pretty much a year, coming up to the calendar year. Yeah. I'm sure it was August. It would have been August last year. He picked up the injury because I think it was the second round of the League Cup. So I think potentially there might be a late call in terms of seeing how Kraft is. Say if we'll move Manquillo on, and there could be a potential for him to stay in the squad. I don't know how that works with his age, or like if he's classed as a homegrown player for Champions League. I don't know how that would work, but I think it'll be a late call, and that'll be based on how Emil Kraft does if he gets back in, because I don't even think he's back in training yet, is he?
No,
I'm not sure.
When the last spoke, he wasn't back at full training. I think with Ashby, the one thing he said when he came here was, I'm not getting a game at West Ham, and I was promised football at West Ham. And he's come here and he's now not getting a game here when, we don't know what he was promised, but the expectation would be that he would be Kieran Trippier's backup, and he hasn't even been making the bench in the league game. So again, though I think he had an injury.
He had an injury,
got him over early on, so maybe that's hindered his performance. But the thing with Kraft is he's had a pretty serious injury. We don't know what Kraft we're going to get back from that, if we're going to get the same player at all. You see it time and time again where these players have these injuries, and happens to the best of the players, they'll have an injury and they're never the same. And if what Kraft was doing before his injury was just him overperforming, we're not going to get him back to that level anytime soon. So maybe it's going to be Manquillo moves on, Ashby's the backup for Trippier, and then Kraft is the third selection of we'll use him when we need him and try and get him up. And that's not to be disrespectful to Kraft. It's just you do not know what's going to happen when he comes back from this injury. He could come back and be exactly the same as he was when he left, and it's all happy days. We're all singing and dancing. But the odds are it's not going to be like that. The odds are stacked against him, which I'd love him to prove her wrong, but we'll see. And only time can tell with that one. There's
one player that I want to mention. Does anybody know who that final player is going to be?
I think so, but I'm going to let you say the name.
I have a suspicion. Is it Paul Dummett?
It is not Paul Dummett. It
is Lewis Miley.
It is Lewis Miley. It is. Do you know what? He made his appearance against Chelsea, I want to say it was last season.
It was,
obviously got a run out against Gateshead and another run out tonight against Rangers. He looks like a decent player. He really does look like a decent player. He doesn't look like a Premier League player because he is very lightweight. But
he's very tall.
Yeah, I was thinking that
is.
for a centre midfielder, he's almost the
Similar
same
stature as Isak. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and do you know what it is? We've got carried away before with players that came through the academy. You look at Anderson, you look at Campbell, you look at who else was it? Not Anderson, Armstrong. Sorry. You look at a few players and you're thinking, oh, what was that kid that turned into a Pierre Geordie, and he was from like
Sorensen.
Yeah. He just turned into a massive bike at Chov after a year on Tyneside. We've had these players before, and we think that could be pretty decent. I don't want to get too carried away, but he's got potential, Scott.
He does, and I think he's only 17. I don't think he fits our homegrown quota for the Champions League because he's not old enough. And I know that sounds really crazy, but it's because he hasn't been at the club long enough. You've got to be trained for 4 years, and I think that happens in March next year. So he will be eligible if we're, when we get to the final of the Champions League, he'll be able to be in the squad then. But when we win it, of course. But no, in all seriousness, no, yeah, he looks a hell of a player. He looks like he's got the smarts already of a player that you'll just like, okay, you've got that footballing brain. You need a little bit of fine tuning, and you'll be decent. And then the sky's the limit. Like he can go on to be our centre midfielder with the likes of Bruno, with the likes of Tonali, Elliot Anderson for the next 5, 6, 7 years and beyond.
Yeah.
If it all works out for him and he doesn't get any injuries, and I think he will probably go on loan. I don't think he'll stay, but we have to get that one right because he looks like a player that could be. I think we spoke about last week. We haven't had a player that I think you talked about on Monday, a player that we've been able to go. He's the one that will sell in 5-10 years for your 60, 70, 80, 100 million, like what other clubs have done. He has that potential to do that. I'm not saying he's going to be a 100 million player.
We don't have to do that these days. That may be the difference.
No, we don't. Yeah, that could be the big difference, especially when he's coming into the limelight in terms of I'm a regular first team starter. We're probably all going to be in that position where we've got the commercials in place, we've got everything else in place, and the FFP. Yeah, it'll still be there, but it'll be as almost non-existent as it is for some of the other big six clubs because we'll be up there with them and we'll be hopefully in that same financial steading where we can keep a hold of these players.
I am sick to the back teeth of hearing about FFP already. Already 1 year in, I'm sick of hearing about it. Is there anything else that you would like to add just before we wrap this one up?
Oh, what are your thoughts on Jamal Lewis? Because to me, I don't think he's got a future. I know he's played out of position, but to me, I just don't see him having a future.
I'll give you my honest answer without being too harsh. I think Eddie Howe's probably using this opportunity as a shop window for Lewis. And I think that's it. I don't think Eddie Howe's trying to play about the thing by putting him on the wings. I don't think there's any potential there for him to be a winger. I don't think he's good enough. Far from it. Maybe he was good enough back when we first signed him with the potential that he could have possibly had. That's never happened. Yes, he picked up an injury as well. But I don't think he's going to have a much longer career at St. James's.
I was talking earlier about the club oozing, the team out that pitch oozing confidence. Jamal Lewis was the one player that you could actually quite blatantly see had zero. He seemed reluctant to move the ball forward, to run with the ball. He would get it, stop, and pass it back quite a lot. And when he did get up, I think he put 1 or 2 decent crosses in. But apart from that, I think it's just a shame that he got injured when he did, and then obviously, got roosted to an extent as well. And he hasn't played much football, and I think that's also shown. I do think when we signed him, we possibly got the wrong wing back, and we should have got Max Aarons. More of a player than Lewis, but at the time, I don't think he was available. Yeah, I think it'll be a shame, but I think he's probably championship standard.
We mentioned upgrading that left back position, and he's not the answer.
No,
absolutely not. No. I mean, you think we've got Target, we've got Dan Burn who can fill in there.
Paul Dummett.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I would put him behind Dummett in terms of like the tiers for that left back because he just doesn't look like He doesn't look interested, and that's a big worry. Well, you would. it's Fulham, but he doesn't look interested. And I think it's just he just looks like a player who's devoid of all confidence. And unfortunately, I think one of his good friends is out the door, and that will make it a bit worse. Because I think he does get on quite well with Maxi. He might be like he's just thinking, okay, I've got to cut my losses here and get another team if I want to play. It does surprise us though that he gets a regular start for Northern Ireland, even though he doesn't play any club football. He seems to get regular starts for them, which is weird.
The other option is Shane Ferguson, though, isn't it?
Still. Right. So let's end it there, boys. Been a pleasure as always. Everybody watching, if you just want to like the video, it means a lot to us. If you're watching this back over as well, rather than live, do the same. Become a subscriber. It costs you absolutely nothing to do that. If you want to give it a little bit extra back, it is just $2.99 a month to become a member. You do get access to more content, early access to content, and you also get access to the Telegram group. And the Telegram group, Ian, you've been very active in the Telegram group recently, and it's absolutely wild.
It's been the best. I mean, I'm a little bit reluctant to go back in when football starts again, but the last week has been probably some of the best conversations I've ever had in my life. So it's a great place. It is a great place. It's worth the $2.99/$4.99. So
basically, if you do become a member, if you go on the community page, there's a link there. You click on the link, you download the Telegram group, and it's basically a WhatsApp group full of fellow members, Newcastle fans, and it's a good laugh. It really is a good laugh. That's us done. Thanks everybody for watching. Scott, get the video lined up. We'll see you all later. Ta-ra.